Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with my second Books Beside My Bed video for 2019. Every week I recap what I have read in the last 7 days, so this is what I read from the 6th to the 12th of January. I read 8 books this week, including 1 picture book, 1 middle grade book, 4 young adult books and 2 adult books. And in there was 1 novella and 1 short story collection. I read 2,451 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 13 books. I am currently reading Cibola Burn by James S. A. Corey, which is book 4 in the Expanse series. I'm nearly 200 pages into that, so that's not included in this list, but will be featured next week. I may or may have also become obsessed with the Netflix series Titans now that it's been released here in Australia, and it's all about Dick Grayson and Robin 1, and you know, I'm obsessed with anything to do with the Batman universe, and so I spent my weekend watching that. I would do a full recap, except I've got so many books to talk about that I don't really have time to do it in this video. If you'd like me to talk about my thoughts on the series, feel free to let me know down below. I have a lot of thoughts, but I did really enjoy the show and I'm looking forward to season 2. The first book that I read this week is Sanctuary by Karen Licks. This is a young adult science fiction book that was released in 2018 by Simon Pulse, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is the story of Kenzie, who is the daughter of 2 wardens of the very high security prison for superpowered teenagers. She works for the prison as well as sort of a junior officer in training, and one day a drill goes terribly wrong and Kenzie finds herself the captive of the prisoners, and then the space station is attacked by an unknown force, and it gets very, very dark very, very quickly, which I was not expecting. There's a lot of things that this book takes for granted. The fact that you don't get a lot of world building, in the sense that the author doesn't try to explain why there are these superpowered teens and how they get to be in prison and why this world is the way it is. But it doesn't really matter because this story is super fast paced. It is really about what happens on the prison station, and I tell you what, I love myself a good alien story, and this was super dark and the aliens were super creepy, and I really, really enjoyed it. I read this for Tome Infinity for the challenge Shelter because, you know, there are people living on this station. But as with last week, I did manage to fit in a few other challenge prompts for this book. So it also covered off air, fire, food, sleep and shelter, medicine, oral communication and travel, class structure, government and technology, and also dancing, which is good because dancing is my problem challenge in this readathon. Then I read Troll Mountain by Matthew Riley, which admittedly is not science fiction, but I did read it for the Tome Infinity Challenge Medicine because it does deal with how do you cure an illness that's plaguing a community. This is a 2014 release by Pan Macmillan and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is super short. It is sort of a YA novella fantasy story, and it is about Raph, whose sister falls ill. He decides to procure the elixir from the trolls who live on Troll Mountain, and it's a coming of age quest, chosen one sort of story. And even though it's a fantasy series, it does add in a bit of science into the story of the cure for the illness that is plaguing Raph's village, so I don't feel quite so bad about reading this for this challenge. It was fast-paced, easy to read. It was not the most complicated of stories. It could easily be read by the younger YA side of things if you don't mind a little bit of graphic fighting violence. It's Matthew Riley. I enjoyed it. It was just a nice opportunity to finally read something by him that I hadn't read before. So while I read it for medicine, it also fit the challenges shelter, medicine, oral communication, travel, and I think a bit of science fantasy. Then I read 10,000 Skies Above You by Claudia Gray, book 2 in the Firebird series. This was published in 2015 by Harper Teen and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I read this for the challenge Travel because the characters in this story travel between alternate dimensions of themselves. Being the second book in a series, I'm probably not going to talk too much about the plot, only that we are still following Marguerite Kane as she's traveling between different worlds. And in this book, she really begins to understand the implications of what happens when she travels, because in this world, when you travel between dimensions, your consciousness is actually superimposed over your physical body in that dimension, and as such, it overrides the personality of who you are in that reality. And everything that you do in that body has consequences, and Marguerite really begins to realize the implications of that as she starts to revisit a few of her previous selves that she has inhabited in the first story. I really enjoy Claudia Gray's writing. This has a love triangle in it, but for the majority of the book, we only see two of the characters because the third character is currently out of the picture for plot reasons. I really like seeing how these two characters deal with that because, again, there are implications for any action that they take. It was just nice to see them try and figure it out, which I can always appreciate because relationships are complicated, and especially when relationships involve friendship first. So I enjoyed it. Great series. I'm looking forward to reading the final book in the trilogy. I need to pick it up so that I can hopefully read it this year. So while I read that for the challenge travel, it also fit the food, sleep, shelter, medicine, education, trading, travel, urban settlements, government, higher education, technology, religion, art, and writing challenges as well. Then I read Star Wars Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older, which is part of the new Star Wars universe. This was published in 2018 by Century and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was not my favorite of the series, to be perfectly honest. It was okay, and it is set around the time when Ben Solo is probably about a year or so old. Han is finding himself a little bit stifled by, you know, living a life where he's not traveling everywhere. And when Lando finds him and reveals that something that they did in the past has serious implications for the universe in the current day, the two of them decide to go off on this one last adventure to undo some of the things that they'd done wrong in the past. It was fine. It's an adventure story, and I read this for the challenge trading because, you know, smugglers. You know, it was fine and it was enjoyable. And I did listen to the audio of this as well, which was great. It jumps around a little bit in time, so you have the present day and you also have the actions of multiple characters in the past. But ultimately it was just, yeah, it was just okay. So Last Shot also fit the medicine, trading, procreation, oral communication, travel, technology challenges in Tome Infinity as well. The next 2 books I read were on my Kindle, and the first one was We Are Omega by Justin Woolley. This is a Loveless YA science fiction story that I received for review. It was published in December 2018 by Lonely Robot Books, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was an alien invasion story, which I didn't realize at the time of reading it because I like going into things blind. But Justin approached me and asked if I'd be willing to read and review his book, and I said absolutely because I really enjoyed his Territory series. And I'm so glad that I did because it was super fast paced. Once you get into the story, it just sort of keeps going. In this story, we have a dual perspective from 2 characters, Molly and Wells. Molly is an American teenage girl and she is living in a town where an alien ship crash landed, and this entire town has built a community around this spaceship that's been walled off. The aliens can't really leave the compound because of the risk of becoming ill or whatever. And when they landed, they released an alien virus on the human population that killed off 1/5. So 1 in every 5 person died from this virus. And the people who survived have since moved on. It's been about 6 years. The aliens have decided to open a school for teenagers to sort of help train them in their technology and their ways. And Molly is very resistant to this idea. She very, very much despises the aliens because both her parents died from the virus. Wells, on the other hand, has been accepted into this school. He's an Australian teenage boy and he has a very shady past that involved a stint in juvenile detention, and he is also a very highly anxious character and a bit of a hypochondriac. And their paths cross and they really end up having to fight to save the planet from something that's going on, this conspiracy that's happened. And it went in places I didn't expect it to go, which was great. I like it when young adult science fiction does the unexpected. The same thing happened with Sanctuary and I really liked that. So I'm very, very grateful for these kinds of books. And there's definitely room for a sequel. I don't know if there is going to be one at the moment, but I would definitely be interested in reading it. So I read that for the challenge technology, but it also fits the following challenges: shelter, medicine, education, procreation, oral communication, travel, government, technology, and religion. Good thing I've got my laptop with my handy dandy list because I would never remember all of these things. The second ebook I read was my middle grade book, and that was The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. This was published in 2016 by Little Brown Books, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This was just an adorable story. It is a story of a robot called Roz, whose cargo ship that's transporting her and a whole bunch of other robots is involved in a shipping accident, and Roz's cart washes up on this uninhabited island. And there she puts herself together and she starts learning about all of the animals who live on the island, and building friendships and relationships with them. And she becomes the mother to a gosling when something she does causes the death of the gosling's family. And it's really about how she becomes part of the community, going from being a monster to being a community member. And it is just absolutely adorable and wonderful. And I'm going to be reading this book to my grade 3/4s this year because I just absolutely fell in love with it. I do have the second book, The Wild Robot Escapes, ready to read, and I will hopefully pick that up this month. I read The Wild Robot for Urban Settlements because Roz does build her own house, and it also fit a few other challenges. So it also fit water, fire, food, sleep and shelter, oral communication, urban settlements, technology, acting and dance. Then I reread Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. This is a collection of speculative / science fiction short stories. Ted Chiang is amazing. This was originally published in 2002 by Picador and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It is one of my all-time favorite books and it has one of my all-time favorite stories in it titled Stories of Your Life, which is what the film Arrival was based on. You guys know how much I love both stories. And this is the first time that I've reread Stories of Your Life since seeing the film, and I've watched the film maybe 4 or 5 times now, and I will probably watch it again now that I've reread the story. So I can see where the differences are, and I understand completely why things were done differently in the film to how they are in the story, but I can also see how they help to bring this story alive in an even more amazing way. They're just things that I absolutely love. There's a whole bunch of stories in here ranging from things that deal with religion, to creation, to technology, to just social commentary on what could the future look like. And I really love that. I think it's very thought-provoking. Ted Chiang just has a wonderful, wonderful way of telling a story in only, 60, 70 pages or less. And I very much appreciate that. So if you haven't read this, this is one I highly recommend. So I read Stories of Your Life and Others for the challenge Higher Education, but it also fits the following challenges: Fire, Medicine, Education, Procreation, Oral Communication, Travel, Government, Higher Ed, Technology, Religion, Invention, Futurism, and also a little bit of science fantasy. So those are all the books that I read for Tome Infinity this week. The last book that I read is the aforementioned picture book, and that is In Blossom by Yu Chun. And this was sent to me for review by Alan Nunman, so thank you very much to them. This is a 2019 release from Francis Lincoln Children's Books, and it is a absolutely gorgeously illustrated story about an unlikely friendship that the cat and the dog strike up while sitting on a bench underneath a cherry blossom tree. It is really just one of those beautiful, serene picture books. It is a slice of life moment about how two very different characters can come together and appreciate the beauty of the situation around them. I really loved it. It was absolutely gorgeous. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Can't wait to take this into my classroom because it is just stunning. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you are planning to. I would love to talk to you about them down below. Also, let me know what you are currently reading and how you're enjoying it. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.